Hello guys, it's Peter and Eddie from PS Sound, and now this is part 3 of this project. Part 1 was the introduction, and in the second part you could see we showed how we did the mid-bass install and the front sub enclosure in the footwell. And now this is the follow-up. You can see that, when people ask me how we know how to strip cars out, well, I'm totally honest, sometimes we don't know how to strip the cars out because every single car is different. And we had a later E-Class that we had to work on before, an E-Class coupe, and the rear quarter panels in that were tricky to strip. And this is not any simpler. This is the point when we try to find information from YouTube. YouTube is a beautiful thing. There are many videos giving tips, but they don't show everything, or they don't have videos of every single car to strip it out. So you just have to go slowly, step by step, stripping rear seats, panels, because we have to run all those cables all along, and then we have to soundproof the rear quarters as well. So these are the times of what everyone loves to deal with. Then at the same time we are cracking on with the trim panel and the grille for the mid bass. So I just measured up where I had to cut around the mid bass driver, because I'm using a generic speaker grille, which was one of those that had a wider lip. So normally you would put this ring underneath the driver, bolt it down, and then put the ring in that tiny little groove. Instead, I'm not putting this underneath the speaker, I'm putting it around it. So I just cut it with the jigsaw, made it nice and thin, but left that groove where the grill sits in. And then so I can place this ring around, and then I can glue this to the trim panel. So the trim panel will always pop in and out with that ring in place, isolated from the driver. That's the idea with it. So now I can glue it together, take it out, and then bond it together. Now these came out, just super glued in place at a few areas. You can see those holes. We don't want this to separate when we bond it together. Surface still needs roughening up. And then we have to bond this ring in. In this video we will have less time lapse, and we show a bit of real
rubbing
exactly. As I showed earlier, as the ring was super glued in, now through the holes it was fiber filled from both sides, so it won't separate. The whole panel becomes also more rigid. And then just sanding, making it nice and smooth.
The dust.
Yeah, the dust is always smooth.
Nice and smooth.
I don't know how we will finish it yet, but we will see. We will discuss with the owner. You said carpet would be the easiest, and yeah, it would be. The front sub box is carpeted, the floor is carpeted, everything is carpeted, but usually
we can carpet the whole car, even on the outside.
Even the windows, yeah?
Of course.
Like Scooby-Dooby-Doo, Big Fur, for example, yeah. We will see what we finish it with, and at the same time, oh, Nick is deadening door cards there, like that. Look at that pile of stuff carefully placed on top of each other. Now all that comes out of a car, crazy. Mad amount. And at the same time, I'm on to the sub installation. As we said in the description, we would do true IB. Usual method of cutting through, let it breathe, protect it from underneath, happy days. That's usually easier when you have a steel spare wheel, like we did in the Insignia. It was that easy. In this one though, it's a bit trickier because this whole tub is plastic. It's rigid because you have all those ribs, and then you have right angle on it. And what's really flexy is the bottom, but that's going to be cut out, so that's not a big concern. But yeah, we will have to literally bond it together with 1-inch ply, birch ply, and then build up the whole structure from wood. That will sort it out, then it will be rigid, it won't flex. Yes, of course, the best would be to take this whole thing out and then weld a frame in, but that's a completely different time frame and budget frame we don't have possibility for, and the owner doesn't mind if we bond to the plastic. So we will, yeah, literally bond everything straight onto the plastic, scuff it up, and then use proper builder's adhesive. So we will see how it goes. We are at this stage right now when the tub is cut out, and you can see the 1-inch baffle is also cut out for mounting the sub with the magnet facing up. And we drilled many holes, as you can see, all going through the bottom of the tub, and that's where we will bolt through with big wide washers, clamping the whole thing down with grip feel, bond the whole thing together. And then we also fill those voids probably with expanding foam, and that should make a strong piece. But then we will carry on and build it up all around. Can you please lift it out, Nick? But it took a lot of jiggle because as you can see, this is not a flat surface. We have a lot of ribs and everything underneath. So yeah, I needed action to make sure that it sits as far down as possible. I had to play with it to sit over those ribs and whatnot. But yeah, somewhere those gaps are just way too deep. You can't machine the wood all the way down, or you would have to fiberglass a mold into it and then build it up. But it doesn't make any difference when it comes to making a rigid mounting for the subwoofer. So yeah, we have many holes now all around, and then that's where we will bolt it through. Now we have everything, the sub mounting holes with inserts, everything ready. And then we have, I think, enough grip feel. Yeah, this is not usually the way we do it, but the owner said it's absolutely fine if we bond everything together. This is not gonna go anywhere once it's in. And then all those cavities will be filled with expanding foam, and that will definitely pull everything. There you go. So now we just have to push the bolts from underneath up, big washers. Yeah, that will definitely clamp everything and bond everything together. Just so we have a bit of footage of this one as well. Yeah, we didn't go crazy with this door. We just deadened the door card. That's more likely to buzz, and put isolation on it. We had to leave that area untouched because that's where the airbag is. But we didn't treat the outer skin or the inner skin because the door is actually really well deadened and soundproof from factory. And we don't have a mid-bass driver working in it, so it's less likely.
We have two mid-bass drivers.
Right, originally, yes, you have one at the back as well, yeah, that's rear feel. So now the guys are trying to put it back with extra material. Yeah, exactly. With extra material, it's a bit challenging because factory doesn't leave room for anything to be added on the top, so
Nice.
it's gonna go.
Yeah,
it's gonna go.
It went in.
Testing. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Oh, I wouldn't connect it. I wouldn't play music because then it's gonna screw up our whole video. Copyright is gonna bum me. Yeah.
Then it's not a test.
It's not a test. Yeah, we have to show to people how great the factory rear field wideband speakers sound from 2009 or whenever it was designed. But you know, speaker design hasn't changed that much. I mean, it's not bloody magic to.
Yeah, but look, this speaker is from the Logic 7 system.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, Barry.
There you go.
Yeah, high end. Well, to be fair, we saw the front speakers and they didn't look bad at all. None of them. The mid-bass tweeter, everything looked pretty good. And now we're putting the car back, well, the interior back, and then we were thinking what to do with the rear feel, which is only going to work as a differential rear feel anyway, and it doesn't have to play below 250 or 300 hertz. So then Eddie had the idea to test the factory widebands, 2-inch, same size as this, isn't it? Yeah. This is the only Ram 2Q, I think it's a 2Q, the second generation Audible Physics 2-inch. The only piece I have left. It's pretty good now for pop testing or anything like that. And then we put them side by side, and there's a slight difference, but to the time we put it through the Helix V8, I tune it, measure it, EQ it, and it will play just room information as differential rear feel, then it will work pretty well. So yeah, we put this through now to the owner. He can decide if he wants to spend money for the sake of spending. Or we just put these back, wire them up to the aftermarket amplifier. Nice and simple, easy, OEM, and it will sound fine. This part looks pretty messy and drastic for sure. This is not something we do on a regular basis, but you know, everything for the sake of getting the results done. So I mentioned earlier that the owner didn't mind doing something this drastic to this plastic tub. As you can see, the balm is bolted to the floor, and then we built up all the sides from 1-inch ply all the way around, bonded together and bonded to the plastic, and then all the voids between the plastic and the ply have been filled up with expanding foam, which looks pretty funky now. So that needs shaving back, perfect sealing, and then the whole thing can be carpeted S1, and then it will look clean. Then we can mount the amplifiers all around, you will see shortly. So that's the back end for the true IB sub. And then up front, not much has changed since last week's update, other than you could see we put the door cards back. We treated the door cards with deadening and soundproofing. Those are back. The interior is back. Rear shelf was deadened. Rear cards also isolated. And then actually we used the factory rear field speakers, 2-inch widebands coming from the Logic 7 system. We tested them. We showed to the owner that they didn't sound bad at all. They were not so much different from the Audible Physics 2-inch widebands I had on the shelf. We compared them to. Yeah, the Audible Physics was a bit more sensitive in mid-range, but to the time we put it through the V8, Helix V8, we tune it, they will be just as fine. It's difficult to see because you can't see through the window. Yeah, no you can't. The underneath those trims on far out, they aim a bit out like this, and then on this side it aims up to the windscreen like that. On this side we have a factory 8-inch subwoofer, IB subwoofer on the shelf. We don't use that now, and underneath it's all deadened now, so it's not going to play any role. But we couldn't take that one out because the wideband is part of it, into the kind of molded into the plastic mounting of the 8-inch sub. So that way, you know, we can make it sound fine for the rear field and then save time on installation. Some people would have said, no, it's not good enough, I don't trust you, Pete. You know, put in something else, spend the day installing something differently there. I spend money on speaker and installation, and then probably the result wouldn't be much different. But this time the owner trusted me, and then we will be absolutely fine with that solution for the rear field, playing as differential anyway. So up front, we pulled many cables in. We have a pair of analog RCAs running to the glove box. We have optical cable, which is there running to the front. USB cable for the DSP. We have extra cable, that blue thing, for extra power, because we will have a small power distribution in the glove box for all his gadgets, for his screen, the deck, whatnot. And what else? We pulled many cables to the front, crazy. Yeah, analog digital lines, power cables, control cables, remote cables, loads. At least down here in this plastic tub, there's all the factory cables, and then all the extra cables running there, nice and tidy. We built the trims for the grill. As you could see, it's all bonded together now. It needs finishing. We have to decide what we trim it with, what we do with this. So that still needs doing. Sub needs to go into the enclosure up front. And yeah, step by step, we are getting closer to another week's progress. It definitely looks better now after today's progress. Yes, you could see at the beginning of the day, with all that expanding foam, it looked crazy. But then it got tidied up, shaved off, the whole area recarpeted, and then now it looks just fine. We had a bit of a fun dropping the sub in with the magnet hanging down. Yeah, I used that for the thumbnail, just to have a bit of a laugh. Of course, we are not that crazy to have the magnet hanging down. It would be a nice, you know, steel collector on the ground, that's for sure. So it's gonna be laid out like this. This is how it's the most practical to wire everything. The 850 XM running the front sub over there, 1350 here. No, that's the 1350, that's the 850, and the V8 and power distribution over here. We found decent power grounding points where we had an M8 thread, factory thread, so we just had to take the paint up, and then that's a better ground point than using something like, you know, you can see that there's a ground point there and many others little studs, but over there the body is just spot welded on. It's not really a solid part of the whole chassis like where the battery is grounded to up front, but that is definitely great over there. So power and ground is going to come in over there, but the floor is going to sit above it and spaced up a touch to clear from the cables. And then yeah, we have shitloads of cables over there now, so there's going to be quite a lot happening over here to wire everything up and make it acceptably looking as well. We will have to build a new floor next week. The owner was asking if we could come up with some fancy plexi design. I think for the time being we will just have an edge-lit plexi and downwash light, and in the future if we want to create something fancy then we will have the chance for that, but I don't think that we will have time for that. This system has to be built, the foundation has to be solid, it has to sound great. That's the priority within the scheduled time, and then if he has to come back, especially when the speaker is running and it needs a retune, then we also have time to think about making something artistic should he want it, or you know, if he has budget for that. You can see I have the front sub cable hanging out because I wired it up onto the wall. I just tested the front sub, what it's like, and it does exactly everything what we needed from it. Once we finish the car, the RTA evaluation video will be uploaded to Patreon. You always find the link to that in description. That will be interesting to see, but that's definitely a great location for the front sub where we get great loading from it. And now that is in as well. And then yes, we will get comments that, oh, you know, your passenger sits in it, is going to destroy that sub, blah, blah, blah. Well, we will have the JR grille, which is very, very rigid, right in front of that sub. And then the floor mat will go above it. Nothing is going to happen to that sub. It's spaced down. That's why we made it so much countersunk, so the grille will be flush with the buffle. It will be absolutely fine. And that's the crazy thing. Now the kick panels are trimmed, put in from driver side. You can't even really see it. It's gone. You can only see the bolt, the stainless bolt shining. And then again, Chris, my client, will be like, haha, Pete, I told you, use black bolts. But that's the funny thing with stainless, then you have to paint it or you use a Sharpie or whatever else. We will see if the owner is bothered about the stainless. If it can be spotted, then we can paint it. At the front sub it won't be seen anyway, because the floor mat will be in front of it. And even on this side, you know, it disappears completely. This car will be really stealthy. People won't even be able to tell where the mid base is. They won't feel any pressure on their legs like you would from the door. You won't have any rattle. So the speakers will completely disappear visually, and also acoustically. You won't be able to identify where they are. And as you can see, I also just dropped the mid-end tweet over there. That's next week's project. That will have plenty of time lapse. Not like this week's update. Sorry for that, guys, but yeah, this week hasn't been the best for me already. It is still struggling with the yeah, Omicron, trying to get out of it. And I also had family over. He was also off because of family reasons today at the end of the week on Friday. So next week will be a busy week because we have to wire up everything. We will have to cut through this key hatch hole, address that, and then make a beauty panel for it, a speaker cloth it so the bass can come through from the boot. We have to put the glove box back, shitloads of cables running into the glove box, sorted out, small power distribution for the owner's tablet solution and everything that needs to be sorted out. All that has to go back, seats, whatnot. Sail panels, pillars need to be built. The front end with the battery has to be sorted with fuse holder, new battery, controller up front, and then all this needs wiring, trim panels coming back. So yeah, next week will be a push. You will definitely get a better update with more content, with more time lapse and everything next time. And then of course, yeah, next Sunday is collection, so that will be quite a push next week, but it is what it is. Sometimes, you know, we have better progress with projects, and then sometimes, yeah, we really have to push it at the end. But to be fair, I never managed to finish anything earlier than planned. And I think any other installer knows exactly what it's like when you can see how a progress goes, and at the end you just do silly hours, 10, 12, 14 hours a day just to make it happen. It's part of the game. But at least the owner knows exactly where we are. He gets his daily updates, so he's on the top of the progress. He can see what's happening, and he's had his input every single time we did something and he wanted to change something, or he figured out he needed extra cables. He had the chance to say that. Without these updates I sent to clients, yeah, at the end there would be surprises, like with this project as well. Then he would be like, oh shit, I should have had this cable and that cable coming to the front as well. Then it would be too late. So this is where I'm going to cut it, guys. Hopefully you managed to pick up something from this part as well. Check out description. You can see a link to Patreon. As always, you can also see a link to this playlist. If this was the first video you saw from this project, then check out the introduction and part 2. Introduction was part 1, obviously. So you can see how this project comes together, and definitely subscribe to the channel, otherwise you will miss the next part. And we will also have a handover video with the client, his thoughts about the whole project, what he thinks about the system, just like we do it quite often when we have time for that. For now, this is it, guys. Enjoy all next week, or whatever is left from the weekend, and I'll see you in the next part. Take care.